morning, everybody, and welcome to CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Osamendi.
And we're really happy to be part of the RVN business lineup. If there's one thing we all have in common, it's that we like to explore ways to walk your talk, to align your brand and culture. And we've got an absolutely great guest today. Her name is Hilary Norris from Empirical Consulting Solutions.
Hello, love to be here.
Hilary, you have been a CFO, you've been a CIO, you've been just about everywhere in the C-suite. And explain to us for a second what it is you do at Empirical Consulting Solutions, how you help clients.
Hi, I'm a partner at Empirical, and I run the CFO practice for them. Okay. So we help businesses that want to go to the next level. So quite often you're growing too fast and it all gets a little bit chaotic. So we look to see what do we need to do to help you get to that next level and make your business better.
All right, great. Now, before the program, we talked a little bit about kind of two ways that you have to approach those problems. One way is to make sure that all the processes are buttoned up and that everything is pursued logically, and I know that's one of your sweet spots. You do that really well, but there's a human-oriented side to making things work too, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the first thing you need to get right. I mean, when we look at companies, we look at them in three buckets, but we look at it in three ways, starting with organization, people. It is the single most important thing. Then we look at your processes. Then we look at your systems. A lot of people try and do it the other way around, and it generally doesn't quite work.
Well, that's interesting, because most people think a CFO is just, dots and lines and numbers and stuff like that. And there's more of an human
to that job.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think every job, when you start to get at the more senior level, it becomes less about doing and more about thinking and laying out plans and really thinking through what are the next steps for me and my business. And that's true across the board, whether it's a CFO, a COO, a CIO, CEO even. It all becomes more about setting the path, bringing in the right people, making sure you operate the right processes, and then choosing the right technologies.
Right.
So for people watching our program, these are owners of companies. It could be anywhere from, let's say, 5 million to what's the right size company for a client who would want to call you?
Yeah, no, so we'd say our sweet spot is in small, middle-sized companies. So that would be sort of 5 to up to about $1 billion. We have worked for some big companies too, and in fact, all our background of the partners is from big companies. What we're doing is taking that big company experience and bringing it down into the middle companies that are trying to go to that next level. So you don't need to go and buy that big ticket CFO yourself. What you can do is get that experience out of us that takes you to the next level, and then you can grow your people to that next level. Yeah.
Great. And you also specialize, I think, in a particularly thorny area, mergers and acquisitions. Isn't that part of your background?
Yeah. I mean, before I became a partner at ECS, I think I did 50 deals in 3 years. So a lot of experience. And again, I think you were talking earlier about the human side. So important in M&A to put the human side first. I think more acquisitions fail because you think it's about the numbers, you think it's about synergies, where 90% of it is about the people.
Do you deal with a lot of family-owned businesses?
We do. We have a lot of family-owned, a lot of private equity or venture capital-owned.
Okay.
Sometimes the PE companies, they have an operating arm that helps the companies, but they're quite often capacity constrained. They'll bring in us, or sometimes they're just not big enough and don't have that operating arm, and that's where we come in.
Right. Good.
Great. And you don't necessarily go in and replace you could be an interim CFO, or you can be an adjunctive helper CFO.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's, or CIO or CTO as well. Isn't that right?
I think what we try to do is go in and help companies and then move on and bring the people in behind us. So if you need us to come in and be an interim CFO, we'd help recruit a replacement long term and then bring them in. It's economically a lot more sensible for companies to do that. We can help lead and steer the agenda, but you don't need someone like me 100% of the time. If you're doing an M&A, you don't need an M&A specialist like me 100% of the time. So we can come in and do the bits where we really add value, help the company move forward, but then hand off back to the people that are going to run it day to day. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, so And by the way, where did you learn to do all this?
Right.
Because I know you've got some pretty big company experience too.
Yeah, so I've lived and worked all around the world. So I've worked for two...
You have an accent, by the way.
I do have an accent, yeah. Quick aside here, I'm recently an American citizen, very proud to be an American citizen.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. But I was actually born in the UK. And I've lived and worked all over the globe, Europe, Asia, did quite a lot of time in Asia, and obviously here in the US, both East Coast, West Coast.
Right.
Working for two great companies in great opportunities. But now I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and myself, and take all that experience and make a business for myself and hopefully help a whole bunch of companies along the way. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And the kinds of problems that you address. I mean, people, companies may be having a growth problem.
Yep.
I mean, you have a team. You represent a team that can actually help in a bunch of different areas. Isn't that right?
So I'm really lucky. I'm so fortunate. It's myself and 3 other partners. And across what we do, we can cover sales and marketing, operations, finance, technology, HR. So we've got the full end-to-end.
Right.
We all have that big company experience, which we then bring to bear for our clients. So we can do a sort of CXO interim or partial across end-to-end, which I think is a fantastic offering. And the other thing that I think is so special is that because we've all done it ourselves, we're not going to come in, give you advice and hand you a piece of paper and say, well, good luck with that. Yeah? Which is what a lot of big consultancies will do. We know how to do it, and we will help you in the doing and setting yourself going forward. So
You've worked all over the world, as you said. Do you find the mindset of Eastern-oriented companies versus Western-oriented companies any different?
Yeah, what I love about Asia is it's a society that's very, very aspirational. Yeah? So the energy and passion to win is just phenomenal. They will drive and drive and drive to move forward, and that can be very, very inspiring. So that's one of the reasons I quite like working in Asia at times. Is you don't have to push people to do stuff. You're more likely to go, whoa, just hold up a bit, rein them in. Probably don't want to do that quite yet. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so in mergers and acquisitions, you mentioned obviously a big part of M&A is the CFO function, which is how do you take these two sets of books and reconcile them. That's a numbers problem, a numbers issue. But there's also that people issue that you talked about. Maybe you can walk us through the steps. Where do you start? Somebody says, I'm combining my company with somebody else's company. Where do you start, Hilary?
Where would I start? I mean, the project plan to do stuff like add the two sets of financials together is really easy. The bit where you really have to start is around what I term the change management. And the communication. I'd say 90% of acquisitions that fail because of lack of real cultural understanding of the two companies and when you bring it together. While people do come to work to earn a wage, it's very, very rarely the check that really gets them inspired and out of bed in the morning. And you'll see that straight away when you approach your acquisition. And you've got the first day, you've done the deal, you get everybody together to tell them how excited you are. Quite often the first question from the guys you brought together will be a cultural question. Now my favourite example, big acquisition, ask for questions, and the gentleman put his hand up and says, in my company now I'm allowed to bring my dog to work. Can I still bring my dog to work?
That's a big question.
Because it really underpinned the type of culture he was working for. And that was so important to him, that relaxed culture of being able to bring your dog to work and bring a little bit of your family, if you like, into your workplace was really important. You ignore that at your peril. So in terms of M&A, what I try and do is take people through that soft side of, have you thought about how you bring these cultures together? You need to be communicating with people every week. Let's put a plan together. Let's think about what we're going to say as the process goes through. Be clear and transparent about what life is going to be like in this new, exciting combined company. That's really, really important.
Yeah. Who is the person at the companies you serve that you typically communicate with? You do this with the CEO?
No, I think it's important that, well, it's the CEO that has to do the communicating to the acquired company. You know, the leadership that is going to be leading this company going forward needs to be the guy up there and talking about what his vision's about.
Right.
My role is making sure that's orchestrated and handled and done frequently to every level in that organization. Yeah.
And if the organization is an international organization, if they have offices in different countries,
Yes.
there are subcultural differences. I mean, there's the culture of the company, and then there's the culture of the country.
Yes. But a number of things still hold true. So frequency of communication, I think, is true for everywhere. You know, if you leave a communication void, I don't care which culture you come from, everybody will assume the worst in that communication.
They'll fill it
Right.
with
Yeah,
bad
they'll fill it
things.
with bad things.
Right.
Exactly.
That's how everybody responds to change and uncertainty. So making sure the same discipline happens across each of the business units, whatever the culture, I think is important. Where you'll get the differences is, you know, let's say in the US, you'd probably have all of the management team talking and discussing what they're seeing, because it's a much more sort of level organisation structure in the US. There's less hierarchy. You go somewhere like Japan, the head guy's got to be the guy to stand up and talk. No one else, it's got to be him.
Really?
Because it's a hierarchical society and that's how they'll respond to it.
Right.
So
Okay.
you just need to understand, you know, the nature of the culture that you're working with.
And you have to respect that.
Right.
Your
Absolutely.
expression of respect for it is what earns their respect in
Yeah.
return.
Yeah.
That's really critical.
Yes.
You know, when you're talking about the chief financial officer's position in particular,
Yeah.
because we talked about this a little bit before the program.
Yeah.
It is common for, let's say, mid-sized companies to populate important C-suite positions with people they know.
Yep.
But these people may not be as rounded as they need to be in order to
Yeah.
perform those functions
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I might already have a CFO, and that CFO might be somebody I went to high school with or somebody
Yeah.
I'm related to.
Yeah.
But the CFO job is more than just bean counting. That's
Correct.
typically how we think of it.
Yeah.
But there's a creative aspect to it, and there's a banking relationships aspect to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Why don't you expand on that a little bit? Because I know that's something you do really well.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people think the CFO is an accountant.
Right.
Absolutely, everybody needs a great accountant to keep your books straight. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the entry level of finance. You know, get your books done and get them books done well. But a CFO is got to be value added. Yeah, they're going to be there helping you run your business. So we just take, you know, for example, a bank or the banks. You know, being able to go out there and negotiate with lenders to get you the best deal. That's more of a CFO type activity. So, you know, your average accountant wouldn't know how to put together a lender presentation
Right.
or a lender note to go out to the banks to say, this is who we are, do you want to lend us money? And then run the beauty parade and get the best deal for you. That's not being an accountant, that's being a CFO.
You have to have more
That's
people
being
skills.
a CFO, and
Right.
that's great. We need to take a break, but Hilary, we're going to come back after the break and explore some of the details of that a little
Yep.
bit more with you.
Yep.
We'll be right back with more CEO chat and a great guest, Hilary Norris of
Great.
Empirical Consulting Solutions, after these messages.
Stick around, don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Great. Welcome back to CEO Chat. This guy's name is...
Joe Osamendi.
I'm sorry, it slipped my mind for a second.
I
And
understand.
What was my name
You're,
again?
Elsini.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And our guest, we have a lot of fun here. And our guest, we have a terrific guest.
Yeah.
It's Hilary Norris of Empirical Consulting Solutions. And
Welcome.
Thank
this
you.
is such a great conversation to have because what we're doing is exploring every nook and cranny of the C-suite.
Yep.
All the CXO roles that we talked about.
Yep.
All of which are roles that you have personally filled for some pretty large companies.
Yep.
Before the break, we were talking about how the chief financial officer is really more than just a bean counter.
Yep.
The chief information officer is really more than a computer geek. Isn't that true?
Oh, so I'm a bean counter and a computer geek combined, yeah.
I know.
Combined.
Bet my husband didn't know that when I got married, yeah. Yeah, so, you know, I think you're spot on, is that, you know, we all like to have those views as to what they look like.
Right.
But in the C-suite level, you know, I always say you have to be a business person first before you are a functional head.
Right.
You know, if you do not understand business, you are not going to be a good C-suite person. So whether that's technology and how you use technology to add value, to your
Right.
company, or whether it's a finance person and how you're going to guide the business to make the best financial decisions for itself. The first thing is you need to understand the business and how the business works. Yeah.
That's it. And then you can apply that to whatever the technology direction
Right.
might be.
Yes.
This is a point, I think a point I want to make is there are a lot of people out there that might be thinking about getting help for some of the people who are filling those roles that
Yes.
they currently have
Yeah.
filled with people they know. And your job with a company like that would be to help that, not
Yes.
replace that person at all,
Correct.
but just help them with the big picture issues
Yeah.
that they might be lost in they might be lost in the forest,
Yeah.
and sometimes they need to be able to see it.
Yeah. So it kind of comes in two ways. Is number one, there's just some specific expertise that you need from us. So it might be that you want to refinance your debt, but you only do that once every 5 years. So we can help with that once every 5 years. You don't want to pay someone like me to be there all the time.
Right.
The other time is about, the business has grown really, really fast. Isn't that fantastic? But, when you first start out and you're the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CTO, the COO,
Right.
the CRO, Chief Revenue
Right.
Officer. You're the C everything, yeah? But then as you get bigger, you then have to give some pieces away.
Sure.
Sure.
So you give those pieces away. But then when you get bigger again, you need to be able to do the CFO job at that next level. So what we try and do is help them go to that next level, provide, well, this is what it looks like in terms of good practices. How can we help you bring those in? So the guys learn with you as you go along. On occasion, we sometimes need to hire that next level person in behind us once we come in and done a
Okay.
transformation and changed, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you keep saying we, and I think this is a good
Yeah.
point. A good point to introduce the rest of the members
Right.
of your team. I know
Yes.
you're part of Empirical Consulting
Yeah.
Solutions.
Yeah.
We've interviewed Bill Morrow
Right.
on our
Yeah.
program before,
Yeah.
and he kind of specializes in sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give us a kind of a rounded view of all the people you work with.
Yeah, so there's 4 partners. There's Bill, who's our sales and marketing guru, and was actually the gentleman I worked with in our previous lives in big corporate businesses. So, Bill's my best friend. There's always that thing, between finance and
He's
sales
everybody's
guys.
best
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
They keep making promises that the finance guys go, not sure about that. So, Bill and I, we're best buddies and best enemies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
And then we've got 2 great guys, Chris and Jason, who really fill the ops side. And they have so much industry experience across so many industries. Whatever industry you're in, we can probably help you, and we've probably been there. And whether it's sales, marketing, ops, finance, HR, we've got you covered. And then we have a big support team. So we get close to sort of 20 people of resource we can bring in, depending on the circumstance of the situation.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned too before the program, and I thought this was so interesting. Empirical Consulting Solutions is kind of a practical lab for empirical consulting solutions.
Yeah. Now, part of the fun we all have coming from big businesses and working with small businesses is we're now actually trying to do the same thing for ourselves.
Okay.
So, we face issues like we've got too much business and we haven't got enough people. So what do? How do we manage that resource? And that's a common issue in service businesses. How do you manage the peaks and troughs of your resources?
Right. Right.
So we're living it as well as hopefully advising on it. So it's a
And
lot
you're
of fun.
growing. I think it's important to make that point.
We are growing incredibly fast, and it's very exciting. So every day it's something new, or a new client, or a new customer. So lots
It's a
of
great
fun.
organization to
Right.
work with too. I mean, we've
Yeah.
had some experience with that. They're just terrific people, and they're lucky to get you. So
And technology's
lucky to
been
get
a
them.
real help for you guys in growing your business, hasn't it?
Yes, we do technology, but only in the order of get the organisation right first,
Okay.
get the processes right, and then we will help you implement the right technology that fits with that.
Okay.
But don't try and do it the other way around. Although we do walk into companies where they have done it the other way around, so they've put the system in, they've not
Right.
considered the people and the process, and they go, it doesn't work, we chose the wrong system. Chances are I didn't choose the wrong system. Chances are they didn't do the people and the process piece
Okay.
before they put system in. you
Right.
know. Systems are really quite stupid. They only do what you tell them.
yeah, we
Right,
do what you
exactly.
tell them to.
Yeah.
Right. So you need somebody who understands the business. You keep coming
Yeah.
back to that. It's
Yeah.
important to understand the business before you can really understand how you apply solutions to the problems that you face.
Absolutely.
That's really
Yes.
critical. So,
Yeah.
so companies out there that are facing challenges like
Yep.
that might be experiencing growth problems.
Yes.
Or they might be having difficulty gaining market share
Yes.
or selling. They
Yeah.
might have sales traction problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ECS and you guys can help with all of that, isn't that right?
Absolutely. I mean, the classic from a finance perspective we see when companies are growing really, really fast. They're growing fast, but they're not very profitable because they're growing so fast, they haven't quite got the delivery side, whether it's product, whether it's service, optimized. So they're very suboptimal for that extra bit of revenue they've just generated. So it doesn't flow through to profit. So, you know, quite often we'll help people optimize the operational piece in the middle. I know Jason did a great piece of work with a manufacturing client that couldn't get their distribution right, and he just went in and saved them $8 million like that. It's fantastic. Just because they couldn't optimize, they could grow, but they couldn't optimize. Yeah.
Well, that's helping people spot the hidden opportunities
Yes.
inside their own
Yeah.
companies.
Right.
Sometimes people, as we've said, get kind of focused on they're so busy working in their businesses,
Yeah.
they don't have time to really think about how to work on their businesses.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you're kind of an opportunity for them. In a conversation with you, you're an opportunity for them to helicopter up over it and take a look down at it and see where all the real challenges are.
Yeah, and we have an empirical way of looking at companies. We call it our fresh eyes assessment, and it's true. Everything, whether it's your own life at home or whether it's your life at business, when you're looking from the inside out, it's not the same as looking from the outside
Exactly,
in.
right.
Yeah.
Whole different perspective.
Yes, it's just putting a different lens over things and seeing things with fresh eyes, which is why we call it fresh
Well,
eyes
that's the
assessment.
fresh eyes assessment that
Yeah.
I know you offer. And
Yeah.
that's, so if we got people out there who might be thinking about engaging you, I know in
Yep.
a little bit you'll get to look in your camera and tell them exactly how to reach you.
Okay.
But before that, first conversation doesn't cost them anything. The fresh eyes
No,
assessment,
no.
is there a cost associated with that?
Again, it would depend on what we were looking at. So I would say sort of a functional fresh eyes would be roughly 10 to 15,000 to do a
Okay.
top to bottom look at, for example, your sales process.
Right.
So, and that might be, who are your players, what are their capability, what's your organizational structure, do you have a pipeline, how do you manage your pipeline, how do you manage your sales activity. So it would be a real deep dive into your sales processes, see where the pain points are, and a whole plan on how you would remedy those pain points, starting with organization, process, and then system.
And how long would that take primarily?
Again, it depends on availability of the team that it's all happens through going in and meeting the people and conducting interviews with the people. So, I mean, technically it's probably no more than, a couple of weeks worth of work in that package. But it really does depend on availability. So you'd probably think about a month because
month?
no
Okay.
one's available 100% of the
Right.
time from the day you walk in, unless they're really in crisis. Yeah.
But like with most really good consultants, just an hour meeting up front, you can get a lot from that conversation even before you make a commitment to moving any further.
Yeah, well, most of the time people know they've got a problem. So they're coming with you and they're saying, we know we've got a problem. Quite often you'll say, oh, we think it's X, for example. We think we've got a problem with our system. We put it in, it's not working.
Right.
Yeah? That's always a red flag to us that it probably isn't X, it's not the system. So, most CEOs do come to us with a hypothesis as to what's wrong.
Okay.
I think their strike rate is probably around about 30%.
Okay.
Okay.
Because again, it's the inside looking out rather than the
Right.
outside
Looking
looking
in.
in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're coming up on that part of our program where you get to tell everybody how to reach you. And before we get to that, I just want to say that people out there may be in the process of building a new structure and they need help evaluating alternatives,
Yeah.
which is a good point at which I think to employ ECS. But they might also be in the middle of trying to get something to work that they're having difficulty with, and that's also something you can help
Yes.
them with.
Yes.
So
Very much
wherever they
so.
are, whether it's remedial or whether it's planning, that's something you can help with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always much funner when you're growing so fast and you need to go to the next level because, that sense of momentum and forward is always great. But likewise, if the bucket is leaking and you need some help
Right.
to plug the
Yeah.
holes, we're
Yeah.
absolutely hands on deck for that.
That's great. Okay, we're at that part of our program where you get to look right in your camera and tell everybody how to reach Hilary Norris.
So I would love you to contact ECS, and you can reach me at hnorris@thinkempirical.com. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you for being on our program, Hilary. It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much. It's been
Hillary,
a lot
it's been
of
a
fun.
pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely
You
a
too.
pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you.
And thanks all of you for joining us today on CEO Chat. Until next week, my name is Al Cini.
I'm still Joe Osamendi.
And you guys have a great weekend, and we'll be back
Be
again.
safe, sound. See you on Friday.
Back again next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.